really quick. We're going to go to, let's say, 30. I believe it's going to be 30, yes. So Jesus told them another parable. Remember the parable of soils? Now the parable of the weeds. It says, the kingdom of heaven is like a man who sowed good seed in the field. But while everyone was sleeping, his enemy came and sowed seed among the wheat and went away. When the wheat sprouted and formed heads, then the weeds all appeared. The owner's servants came to him and said, Sir, didn't you sow good seed in the field? Where did the weeds all come from? An enemy did this, he replied. He already knew. He already knew. The servants asked him, do you want us to go out and pull them up? No, he answered, because while you're pulling the weeds, you may root up the wheat with them. Let both of them grow together until the harvest. At that time, I'll tell the harvesters, first collect the weeds, tie them in the bundles and burn them, then gather the wheat and bring it into my barn. Now, this series we're working with the NIV. Last series was the New King James Version. The series before that, ESV. I want you guys to see different translations and how they work. So the parable assumes that the wheat landed on good soil, guys. That's one of the just things we just got to get. It land on good soil. Things are growing. Okay, so if you remember the good soil talked about in the last parable where things were growing there, right? Here is good soil, but the enemy comes along in that good soil and throws things out there, whatever that enemy may be. It was called darnel back then. It was a weed that looked just like wheat when it first was growing. And as they both went up, you wouldn't know the difference. Matter of fact, that darnel could kill you. That's how bad it was. It was so common to do this to your competitor. Sounds like business today, right? So it was so common that it was in Roman law that if somebody did this, they'd be in deep trouble. So this was common. Jesus was talking a common problem among farmers at that time. And so here's this wheat and darnel going up, and you're going, well, how do we tell the difference? Well, what happens with it is at the very end, when wheat finally kind of does its thing, that's when you tell the difference. You can see the difference there. It's grown, it's matured, it's gotten to its place. So last week we saw weeds being the worries of life, right? We saw weeds being the worry of money or the love of money, not money itself. Money itself is neutral. But the love of money, where that becomes your little g God, that became a problem. And the worries of life, health issues, physical issues, relational issues, all that kind of stuff popping up and landing on top of us, and we're feeling overwhelmed. Now, God's going to talk about this despite all of our stuff. We have to understand that God is with us no matter what. Remember the basic word for that, omnipresent. God is with us at all times, and many times we forget that. All of us, guys, have something that will get in the way. Would you agree to that? All of us have something that will get in the way of our growth. Okay? So let me go through some. It could be an addiction. It could be past hurts that cause you to build walls around you. It could be insecurities. It could be a judging spirit, a destructive and negative attitude. Whatever the case may be, by ourselves, we can't do this thing called life. In Celebrate Recovery, it says, realize I'm not God. I'm powerless to control my tendency to do the wrong thing, and my life is unmanageable. We have to get to that place of understanding that's who we are, where we're at. But with Christ, and when we accept Him, we're now considered a new creation, right? Saved by the grace of God. Now we have an opportunity to grow. And what Jesus is saying here, in your growth time, there will be weeds that will try to choke you out. So I want you to think right now, what are the weeds in your life? What are those things that are around you that really get you off track? Mine is workaholism. I'll start working like crazy and get so focused on all the church stuff that I forget about God. Anybody been there before? I know a lot of people in here. Raise your hand if you're a workaholic by nature. Okay. Hey, we have some people who are actually volunteering and raising their hand. Good. And that's a good thing. That's healthy. So some of us struggle in these different, well, all of us struggle with something. And we need to understand that with God, we could overcome these things. We can grow just like the wheat and mature just like the wheat in the midst of all the stuff. The problem is many believers don't believe that will happen. They let the stuff of the world choke them out, get them tired, beaten, get off track, get off focus, and we end up not growing exactly the way God wants us to grow. I would like us to have a different perspective here. How about this? This was my perspective for this week, which was this. I must expect God to do great things in my life, overcome my addictions, recover from my anger and bitterness, so I can do great things for him in my life. Does that make sense? So, God, I know you can do great things in my life, so I can then be used by you to do great things for your kingdom. So say after me and say it loud, and let's start getting used to this. I expect great things from God.